is I take a piece of Sheena plywood, and this is 3/8 inch wide plywood. It has paneling on both sides, so I can cut both sides of one sheet. So it's very economical. It's made in Japan from basswood, and what I do is I ink up the Sheena so that I have both moisturizing the wood and making it more pliable to cut, and also it makes it easy for me to see what I'm cutting and to see the image as I'm cutting it. Is I trace. I use tracing paper underneath here, and I trace this image onto the wood, and you can see the blue lines are my indication as to where I'm going to be cutting. And then I use my cutting tools. For this project, since there are large areas where I'm clearing out the wood, I actually bought a new knife that accompanies this family of knives that I have. This is my favorite tool. These are all U-gouges. Very thin line is a 1.5 millimeter tool. All these knives are made in Japan. I bought a new tool for this project because although I do sharpen my tools, they never ever are the same after I sharpen them. And with this tool, V-gouge, I can then create these really fine lines that you see in here that are they give you the texture, they give you the feeling of the folds of the cloth. And also I can clear with a big tool, but when I need to get close to a very sensitive area, I need the smaller tool. The reason I make masks is because woodblock is a surface that has a lot of ridges after it's cut. And so in order to prevent some of that noise, I print up all of my prints with masks. So what I do is I take this material, which is called Duralar. It's quite a thin acetate, and I put it right down on the surface that's already been cut. And then I go around my edges and I cut the mask. My intention is for the white areas to stay as white as possible. So after I've cut all the masks, and you can see that I actually have 11 masks on this particular print, my next step is to squeeze out the ink, and I use this wonderful Canfield Caligo ink, and it's non-toxic. This safe wash oil, and then what happens is that it kind of conditions the ink. It makes it easier to work with. After I condition it for a little bit, I take out my brayer, which is also, so this is a Japanese brayer. And again, I'm still trying to condition the ink and make it, it's a liquid, but it's kind of solid when you first start working with it. Again, I'm trying to condition it. There's a certain consistency that I'm looking for over the ink surface. And the next thing that I do is I'm going to, I am going to remove all of the masks, and I do it in order because there's so many, I don't want to forget a mask. So that's, they're numbered, and I put them in order on this kind of holder. Is I ink, and so put the first ink on the surface. So I like to go vertically and horizontally. As I said, this is kind of like a solid and a liquid, and so it's good to go both ways. It gives a nice, richer, dark black this way. And all the way down. Next, I'm going to put on the masks in order. So it's always tricky to remember which masks go where, like especially in the first couple prints. Even when you number them. And you can see why I want to mask it, because there's just so much noise here. I really don't want that noise there. It's not going to compositionally help anything. It's very difficult to just keep getting it down to the wood. So it's just easier to use a mask. And that way I get a nice, clean white. No noise. Put the board on the jig, and the jig is an outline of the piece of paper that I'm rolling out, and it is the it actually shows me exactly where to put the board. It's in the right spot, and this way it's nice and straight, it's centered, it's exactly where I want it to be. So this is my proof stage. That means that I'm just trying to make sure that everything is exactly the way I want it to be. This is a piece of paper that I've obviously messed up, so that's going to be what I'm using for my proof. And because the paper is so long and big, it's much easier to kind of unroll it onto the surface. So I use this kind of tube, and this is the printing surface. So this surface is much smoother. This is much rougher. The paper is called Okawara. It's a Japanese paper that's handmade, and it's just great. It's 60 grams. It's very nice weight. It's just been a super, super paper to work with for this project. I've really enjoyed working with it. It easily absorbs the ink, and it doesn't fall into the crevices. It just sits nicely on the surface of the wood. Okay, I'm very carefully lining it up with the top, that top line up here. I line it up, I roll it down, and I use the tube kind of as a rolling device to get a head start on rubbing down and getting the ink into the paper surface. My next little cheat is I use a rolling pin that also gives it a little bit more, this way I can save a little bit of elbow grease when I'm rubbing down, come through the paper. And that's kind of that's how I know that I've done about the right amount, is when I can really see that that ink coming through. So that's how I know that I've got a nice deep black ink. It's exactly what I want. So in these areas here where you want a really nice deep black, you see that you can see that it's not quite seeped through in all the areas as evenly as I would like. But that doesn't mean necessarily that it is not evenly black on the verso side. This area concerns me because this doesn't look like it has come through. But one of those wonderful things that you can do is you can lift the print and check to see if indeed it is dark black, and it is, and it looks quite good. So I am now going to lift the entire print, and there she is.